What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Around the Octagon podcast. I will be your host today. Our gracious host, Zach, is not in this week. He's out for travel, but nevertheless, we're here. We're bringing it to you full speed. First things first, I want to get some news out of the way. Mando Gutierrez, our guest of the show, not too long ago, we did an interview with him. A friend of mine, a friend of everybody here on the podcast, will be fighting June 20th in the PFL Bantamweight semifinals. He's got 2 more fights to go to take home that 500 Gs. So we're all hoping for him. I think from what I've been seeing, the crowd is going heavily against him, which is exactly what happened the first time, the first fight around in this bracket. So if you want some free money, I think there's going to be some nice looking pluses out there for you. Go on and put some bets down on Mando Gutierrez. He's been looking great recently. But moving on here to some UFC fight news. We got a rumored Diego Lopez and John Silva fight potentially on the horizon. I'm hearing a lot of New Orleans talk. Ryan, let's hear your thoughts here. Do you like this fight? Do you think this is a good matchup? Do you think this is the right fight to make?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Gene Silva and John Silva needs a big jump in skill after his fight against Bryce Mitchell. He looked phenomenal. And Diego coming off that loss against Volk for the belt, I think it lines up perfectly. I know the UFC's teasing Yair Rodriguez versus Volk for the belt next in Mexico. That seems to be the plan, which is sort of ridiculous. And you have guys like Movsar waiting in the wings, who deserves a title shot 10 times more than Yair does at this point, especially considering that Yair's already lost to Volk and really hasn't done much in a way of proving that he's earned another title shot yet. I would have rather have seen Yair versus Diego Lopez. I mean, all fight week they were going at it. There's some big beef there historically. Both guys represent Mexico. I feel like that would have been a pretty good banger of a main card spot, a co-main spot. If you need to throw a title fight up there, you could have done the Movsar Volk fight on that card, and then co-main event 5 rounds Yair versus Diego Lopez. In terms of who wins that and who gets the next title shot, I don't know. And then for Gene Silva, you could have tossed him up to I guess there really wasn't much. So yeah, I'm cool with it. I am a little worried. Gene Silva's no slouch. The dude just looks better and better every time he gets out there, and obviously a very tough fight for anyone, including Diego Lopez. So I really don't know who comes out of that one on top.
Yeah, I love the fight. And I think it's a great fight to have in Louisiana with that headliner being Max Holloway and DP. I don't know if it will be a co-main. I think there was rumored another title fight for that co-main. I don't know if that's been announced, but I think it's good that this fight is a 3-round fight so that these guys could just throw hands. I think styles, obviously we talk about all the time, styles make fights, and these guys, balls to the wall, someone's going out in that fight. I don't see it going to the ground very often. Maybe when someone gets knocked down. I don't want to predict it yet. We'll get there in future podcasts, but I'm super excited for this fight if it fully pulls through. And I'm super excited if it's in Louisiana, like you said, Son, because that just leads to, up on the main event, like banger after banger getting up there. So I'm super excited. Both guys throw hammers, so I'm excited to say the least.
Yeah, no, for sure. Ryan, I do like that you brought up Yair because I did think that was a fight to make, especially after those press conferences before that fight night they had. Definitely some beef going on, and I would love to see him squash it. But if this is the fight to go down it, I think somebody's going out on their shield. Definitely agree with you guys here. But kicking it off to the next, let's see. I saw, or they just announced it not too long ago, maybe a week or 2 ago. The UFC is planning on doing UFC debut patches on the new fighters coming into the league. What do you guys think about that? I mean, I personally am a big fan. I think the collector side of it is definitely huge. It definitely adds a different layer to, what collectors can go after when they're getting cards and whatnot. But I did see a lot of hate in the comments when I saw on Instagram, on Twitter. I saw a lot of people talking shit about these UFC debut patches. So I want to see if you guys agree with it. If you guys like it, I mean, I think it's a good thing. But let's hear it, Luke. Let's see what you got.
Yeah, I love it. I'm not totally tapped into like the card game. I know it's big in baseball, football, kind of basketball. I remember about maybe around 300. Dana White sat down with someone from Fanatics and they had like a bunch of cards that they were talking about. And Dana White was like, "You want this one? This is going to be worth a lot of money." I think that's a whole nother source of revenue, not only for the UFC but a way to spread the UFC globally. Because there's a lot of people who are super invested. You see like the card cons, if you will, kind of like they used to do sneaker con. I think they still do. Not really in the sneaker game as much as I used to be. But I think like you said, the collector's items, people already buy gloves and all these stuff. Um, I'm super excited. That's cool. You put on a card, have a signature in there. You get someone, an Ilya Taporia 5 years ago, or whenever he debuted, and that's worth a lot of money down the line when obviously he's on the path to be a Hall of Famer. So yeah, I think it just brings more light to the UFC. I think it's a great idea, and I think they should totally pursue that.
Yeah, no, happy to see the UFC stepping up their collector memorabilia game. In terms of getting hate for it, I mean, I could kind of see that just given like recent cards and whatnot, still swinging in the apex. I know fans have been immensely disappointed, in some of the product the UFC's been putting out recently as of late. I mean, last week, just one example, I think that I was reading that Fight Night had 11,000 average viewers, which is the lowest of any Fight Night in UFC history since they merged with ESPN. So I can see why people get upset. It's like, why invest this time making UFC debut patches when a lot of fans are giving you flack? You still haven't announced the John Jones Tom Aspinall fight. You still haven't, you haven't been able to commit to like many things that fans have wanted to see and have been waiting for a long time. So like a little bit of a rough spot for the UFC to announce this now. But personally, I am a fan. I think it'll be sick. Son, I know you're the big collector guy here out of us. But so it's a cool idea and concept. Just maybe the timing wasn't the best.
Yeah, no. I do think it's kind of redeeming though. I do think you guys are right there. I mean, Ryan, you did touch on it a bit. Like fans haven't been super ecstatic about the cards coming out recently, but I do think like the second half of the year is going to bring a lot of bangers. I think every headliner that we got is like a really good fight, even on the fight nights and anything that's starting to get cooked up and announced right now. I do think there's a big redemption arc in the second half of 2025 for the UFC. But I mean, to speak on the debut patch, I mean, it really is, I think, just more of a collector's item. It's going to be something else that Dana White can, make a quick buck off of. And I think there's a lot of people that are going to be, super excited to get their hands on them. So let's get into it. I think there's nothing else to cover other than the UFC full card here, UFC 316. So let's jump right into it with the early prelims. We got our first fight, Quillin Salkeld versus Yanal Ashmoz. Quillen's coming in at a minus 455 favorite into this fight. Ryan, let's get your thoughts on it. I know we saw Quillin in the Australia card not too long ago. What are you expecting on his next time around this year?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a hard one to predict for me, at least, because once I saw these odds, I think Quillen's coming in at like a minus 450, minus 500 favorite. I mean, I get it. He had a great debut, one of the best debuts you could have asked for, but it's like, in terms of that, we didn't really see much out of him. It's like, for me to be comfortable with putting him at a minus 500, I would have liked to have seen him dominate, for a round or two and then get that finish over Ansho Jubli. And even then, again, it is Ansho Jubli. Yanal Ashmoz, very good resume. Went to war with Trevor Peek, got the unanimous decision. Lost to Chris Duncan, but everyone does. And then Sam Patterson, he was able to KO. And if you know anything about Sam Patterson, he's moved up to welterweight now, and he's been looking like an absolute monster. I think it's 3 first-round finishes, 2 by KO, 1 by sub. So very good resume here. And I think just in terms of the value, I have to go with Ashmoz.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off that, Ryan. I agree with everything you said. Ashmoz, when I was doing research, obviously I felt like he was a little under the radar, but like you said, that resume does speak for itself. Has some good wins. I think the biggest thing that I'm going against you and I'm going Salkeld here is just I think he has like a 7-inch reach advantage. And he's still young and continuing to grow in every fight. He looked great and that in his debut after the Contender Series. I think he has the range and the ability to kind of control it standing up. And we've seen not great takedown defense, but I think enough to get his hand raised at the end of this one. So I'm going against you. I'm going Salkeld here, but a close one regardless.
Yeah, definitely. I do think this is going to be Salkeld's first big challenge in the UFC. Definitely going to struggle with this one, I guess, in my opinion. But I think his last fight was good. I think Salkeld looked good. He's a pretty exciting prospect, exciting guy out of Australia. Australia's been kind of on a roll recently with their fighters. And I guess when speaking on nations, I haven't seen too much, coming out of Israel, at least recently, fighters wise. So I think I'm just gonna ride the Australia momentum. I'm also gonna ride the style points because I'm big on that. Dude's got a gnarly mustache,
Mhm.
uh, and so I'm riding on him. Pause, not on his mustache. I'm riding his money line. I'm liking Saul Kills here. Moving on then to the next fight, we got. Oh God, here we go. First tough names of the day. We got Jeka Saragih versus Jusang Yu. Odds are very heavily stacked in Jusang Yu's favor. Ryan, let's see what you got to say here. Kind of a tough one to call, especially when Jusang Yu's picture isn't even on the UFC website. But
Nah,
let's see what you
I've
got.
I've watched Jeka Saragih fight, and I'm going Ju Sang Yu here. Jeka Saragih made it to the UFC after losing the finals of the Chinese version Road to UFC. He lost to Anshul Jubli, got taken down, ground and pound TKO'd. It didn't look great. Made his way into the UFC, starched his first opponent, and then lost to Weston Wilson by sub. And it just highlights the fact that this guy really does not have great grappling defense nor takedown defense. Weston Wilson, if you don't remember, that's who Gene Silva made his debut against. And obviously it's Gene Silva, but it just looked like child's playing there. And Weston Wilson just didn't look like he belonged in an octagon when he was fighting Gene Silva. And he made pretty quick work of Jeka Saragih. And there's not too much to say about Ju Sang Yu. Making his UFC debut, his picture on the UFC is a black shadow. He has a 0-inch reach. So, you know what I mean? And he's also coming in at a minus 500 favorite. So I think the odds makers don't know what they're doing, but at the same time, it is Jeka Saragih, and I haven't seen anything to be impressed by the guy since he's made his UFC debut and even fighting on Road to the UFC. So I can't confidently ever place a bet on Jeka Saragih.
Yeah, I'm right with you, Rye. I think this is a very strong possibility. This might be Jeka's last fight in the UFC. Nothing super impressive out of him. And I feel like going back, kind of listening to old podcasts, I'm very much, very cautious when it comes to guys on prelims making their debuts, even if they are, known names or known prospects coming in. But I'm not going to be that way here. I'm going just saying you. I think he keeps his undefeated streak going. And hopefully, potentially, a new name into the featherweight, contention. So I'm going Joe Sang Yu. Not much to know about him, obviously, coming over first fight. But I hope he gets it done. We'll ride the minus 500 favorite.
Yeah, I'm with you guys here. I think he's gonna ride that undefeated train until they put somebody to stop him. I think he's looked really good. Not that I've been watching his fights, but just looking at the tape, looking at the numbers on the on his profile. He's been looking good. Still undefeated for a reason. It's tough to go against one of those guys. And yeah, I'm riding Drew Sang Yu here. Not much else to say about this fight. Next up, we got the first girls fight of the night. We got Ariane da Silva versus Wang Kong, the Joker. Who did I pick on last time? Luke, let's hear what you got to say about this one. Who's winning this one?
Yeah, I'm all over Con Wang. Yeah, that's right. I think it was her first fight in the UFC where she came out with the Joker face, right? And she starts her opponent. Then she kind of, skidded in the fight after that, and then won her last fight. I thought in dominant fashion. I think this is one of those prospects in the UFC that for the women's divisions can be someone. I think I was listening to a podcast earlier today. I think she fought Valentina Shevchenko in kickboxing back in the day and gave her a good fight. I could look it up right now. I have Tapology. I don't know if she won that. She beat Valentina Shevchenko by decision in 2015 kickboxing. So this is, a high level striker that's entering a women's division that we don't always see high level striking in. On the other side, I do think Ariane De Silva or Ariane Lipski formerly. I think she's got good striking. I just think, excuse me, I think there's just levels to it. I think we're in store for, Con Wang to have a crazy knockout. And I think that's what we're going to see. I think she's continuing to get better as she, progresses in her UFC career. So I'm on Con Wang here.
Yeah, Luke, I agree with you. When I look at Ariane De Silva, she's very similar to Bruna Silva, which is who Wang Kong last fought, who she dominated. And I think now, I think she's a smarter fighter. Obviously, her UFC debut, you can't ask for much more. Just one-shot knockout. Very impressive, especially from a women's fighter. You don't really see that too often. And then I think she kind of just rode too close to the sun following that finish, and then chased the finish, ended up getting cracked, and then ended up getting to the ground and got subbed. But I think she's learned from that. And I think we're only going to see Wang Kong get better in the octagon, more disciplined, picking her strikes better, playing the outside a lot better, not bull rushing in for a finish like she was able to get in her first UFC debut. So I have a feeling that, if she can't find the finish, she'll have a dominant decision win in this one.
Yeah, it's going to make it a clean sweep for us. I think Wang Kong takes this one pretty comfortably. She's been, obviously a little spotty with that one that she dropped, but like you guys say, I think the discipline's only getting better. She definitely has a few screws loose with her pre-fight antics, and I'm all about it. Ever since I saw those videos circulating, I was a big fan of her. Didn't know what to think when I first saw it. I was like, I don't know if I like this or if I hate this, but she's bringing the excitement back, and I'm with it. I'm with all the performative type of entertainment acts. So I got Wang Kong here taking it. And moving on to the next fight, last one in the early prelims, we got Markel Mederos versus Mark Chowinski. Ryan, what do you got for us?
Not too much to say about this one. I kind of missed it when I was taking my notes, but I'm just gonna go Markel Mederos here. It's a late ad, but I'll just go Markel Mederos. I know more about him, seen him fight. Not much known about Mark Chonsky, so I'll take the safe bet here.
I'm gonna go Mark Chonsky here. Same thing when I was doing my research earlier this week and over the weekend. I didn't see this fight, and then I was listening to a podcast this morning. Apparently, it got added very recently. I think there's a couple. Same with the next fight, the KS Williams fight, kind of a late switcheroo there. From what I've heard in doing a little research, I don't know much about it. I haven't seen him fight, but I know that Mark has a wrestling background, and he's undefeated. I think he's going to ride that heavy here. I don't know how well Markel is defending the takedowns. So sometimes when you just see a USA wrestler, a guy with that background, you're kind of envisioning, the old school USA wrestlers, the Kobe Covington kind of aspect, the Chris Weidman kind of aspect, just spamming takedowns. And I think, with the late ad and not much known about this fight, I'm going to ride that for UD for Mark Chrzanowski here, or Kunzinski.
Yeah, I'm with you, Luke. Did my research pretty late today going into this one, just making sure I was covering all the bases. This fight popped up out of nowhere. I'm riding on Mark's side mostly and almost strictly because he's got a lot of finishes recently, and I'm seeing a lot of diversity in his finishes. It's not just KOs, it's not just subs, he's getting both. And then, his opponent's kind of getting a lot of recently has been pretty spotty with the decision wins and even a few losses down the line. So I'm riding on Mark's side. Chowinski, I think, he might even get a finish here. We will see. Like you said, Ryan, it's kind of like you guys both said. I mean, very late ad, so not much to go off here, but I do think Mark takes this one.
Yeah, do you have the odds up for that fight? I don't even see him on the UFC website.
I believe Mederos is rocking a -200 favorite right now.
Okay, yeah, so a nice little value play.
Yeah, on DraftKings is 218. Mark is plus 180. So a good value play, like you say. Definitely worth a sprinkle, maybe even a parlay piece there for the late fight coming in here. Speaking of late fights and getting into this card, we got Chaos Williams versus Andreas Gustafsson. Chaos Williams, Michigan boy, used to be from fighting out of Murcielago, where Mando used to train at or does train at. Andreas Gustafsson out from Sweden. Ryan, let's hear your thoughts on this one. What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, Andreas Gustafsson, obviously the brother of the other Gustafsson.
Alexander.
Yeah, Alexander. That's it. I better said. lost his name for a second. Anyway, I don't know if you saw his post because Andreas Gustafsson was supposed to make his UFC debut last week. His opponent pulled out on short notice, so they bumped him up to this card. I'm happy they're able to get him a fight. It's a tough one. I saw his brother's Instagram post on his story. I don't know if any of you guys caught that. He said, "Fight game plan, go full R word." I don't know. I don't want to stretch the limits on this podcast. I don't know what's good and what's not. But
Hey, Dad's not here, man. Zach's not here,
yeah.
so
Yeah, right. Anyway, Gustafsson looked great on Dana White Contender Series. Nasty clinch work up against the cage. Just vicious body shots, elbows, knees up against the clinch. He looked great. I just don't see him being able to do that to a guy with the veteranship that Chaos Williams has and with the physicality that Chaos Williams has. So I could see if he can't get a finish inside the first, maybe the second, once that clinch work, it's harder to do as the rounds go on. I could see Chaos Williams here getting a pretty comfortable decision, taking rounds 2 and 3. So I'm going to go with Chaos Williams here. I'm going to go with the vet.
Yeah,
especially
right.
because it's a switch up on late notice too. He wasn't game planning for Chaos Williams. I forget who his first opponent was going to be, but I thought, and a lot of people thought that he was going to starch his original opponent. Not the case. Way higher up in skill level, big jump in skill, especially for a UFC debut. Sorry, Luke.
No, all good. Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of the aspects, that I feel the same way in this fight. Like you said, Gustafsson won Contender Series back in August of 2024. He has since had 3 canceled bouts, 1 in January, and then 2 lined up for the May 31st card last weekend. And those were Trevin Giles and then Jeremiah Wells. I agree with what you said. I think I'm more favoring Gustafsson in those fights than against a highly touted vet like Chaos Williams. I think the game plan, as you called out, get in the clinch, try to get takedowns, and getting close with those elbows, those short hooks, maybe some knees, and get to work there. With a guy like Chaos Williams, I don't think he's going to have that much success doing that. I don't even know how close he could get because Chaos Williams does sport 3.5-inch reach advantage in this fight. And just the veteranship, man, it's hard to bet against a guy who's been in there with some of the baddest in the division, has some nice wins, has some, tough losses. But just, that experience is, you can't really put a number on it. Also, I think the biggest factor that I'm going Chaos here is because, can you guys still hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we got you.
My computer just shut off. Hold up. Is that, like you guys said, he cut weight. I think his fight got canceled like within hours of the weigh-in. So he was cutting weight for that fight last week. Gustafsson was. And then I think I saw that he went on Twitter, he called out, or maybe his brother did, and said oh, I want to fight next week. Chaos Williams, his opponent, stepped out as well. So that you put any weight class in the UFC, any guy in the UFC, you cut weight a week before and then got to cut weight or, get back into fighting shape and get ready to go again does have an effect on guys. And like you said, Rye, I think he comes out strong in the first. I think he starts to fade and we see the veteranship of Chaos Williams later in the fight. I have it Chaos Williams by decision here.
Yeah, 100%. I think you guys said all the points there. I think Chaos Williams is an extremely tough UFC debut fight. Even if it is a Gustafsson, obviously he's training with one of the best fighters ever, arguably beat John Jones. But it's tough. You can't just come into the UFC and fight a guy like Chaos Williams on, I guess semi-short notice, cut weight twice. Obviously that's going to take a toll on you. And that Mercy pressure is serious. Murcielago is a good-ass gym. I mean, they got some killers in there. Chaos Williams is always ready. All those fighters are always ready to go 24/7. So I think, it's worth a shout out. I got Chaos Williams here. I can't, in my right mind, take a vet like that that's so skilled, so good, against, I guess a rookie in the UFC, to lose. Especially after losing that last fight, he's got a bad taste in his mouth. He's going to want to get this one back. Free kill, basically, in my mind, for the UFC debut. And then next up, we got Sergey Spivak versus Valdo Cortes-Acosta. Ranked fight here, our first ranked fight of the night. Ryan or Luke, what do you got for us? Let's hear it.
Yeah, this was a tough one for me. I'm tuning into this fight. I think this is a great fight, a great matchup. Obviously, Sergey's been in there with the higher level of opponents. I think in his last 3 he's faced, He lost to Almeida last, then he beat Tybura, and then lost to Cyril Gane. So that's that's the cream of the crop at the heavyweight division currently in the UFC. Waldo Cortes has been working his way up there, not fully there yet. This is his first fight where he really gets to showcase his ability with the top of the division. I am going Waldo here. I think Sergey's good, and he has good wrestling for a big guy. I just think Waldo's so much more athletic here. And I think not always does that play a factor in some of the smaller divisions, but when you get up to heavyweights, you see guys bouncing around. I mean, we see it with Chris Barnett, like a big guy, but he's athletic. He gets it done. I just kind of see that, a similar kind of way this fight goes. I think if he survives early on in the early onslaught of Sergey here, he could, work, bounce around, work his way around the octagon and grind it out to a decision victory. I don't see him getting a knockout. I can see Sergey winning by knockout. But I think most likely case is going to be Waldo here by decision.
Yeah, Luke, I'm going the opposite way, but like you, I was pretty torn up about this one.
It's a close one.
I think I rewatched that Jailton Almeida Sergey Spivak fight just to see, because I thought I remembered Spivak having some success on the ground, and he did. He got his one takedown, got 2 minutes of control time. Obviously, I mean, you have an athletic freak like Jailton Almeida, is another just athletic specimen for the heavyweight division. Athletic freak, built like a tank, with nasty grappling. I liked the look of Spivak being able to get control over Jailton Almeida, even if it was only for 2 minutes and even if it's a fight that he lost, because the only thing I've seen in terms of Waldo Cortes-Acosta being able to like wrestle, be competent on the ground is when he fought Rebelis de Spain, who, that 6'9" Cuban monster that came out and he now fights at Karate Combat where he's killing it. But it was just clear to see like the guy couldn't defend a takedown for his life. I think Spivak should be able to comfortably get this fight, and not comfortably get this fight to the ground, but I think he's going to push for it. He's going to get in close. He's going to work those clinches, and he's going to hit those judo throws, those trips. And I think once this fight gets on the ground, it's going to be night and day compared to that Jailton Almeida fight. And I could see Spivak either chasing a sub like he did against Tybura and Derek Lewis, or just, ground and pound damage, maybe not find a finish, but comfortably make his way to a decision. But then again, you never know. I like the fact that you spoke on Waldo Cortes-Acosta's athleticism. With athleticism and this being heavyweight, it's one shot. It only takes one. And the speed and the power advantage here goes to Acosta. But I do see Spivak grinding his way to a decision here.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ryan. I love the points you guys touched on. Definitely got some athleticism to work against. But I do think Spivak's going to get this one back. I mean, you look at his losses. I mean, we got Almeida, we got Cyril Gane, and we got Tom Aspinall. You couldn't ask for, more cream of the crop guys. I just don't think, the Cortes-Acosta is going to be able to put that pressure on that, those three guys were able to put on him. Even, Tybura, he did beat Spivak back in the day, but then Spivak got that win back very recently, kind of redeemed himself. I can't say don't because it's heavyweight division. Like you guys are saying, it's only one shot to kind of end the fight and really, take it. And athleticism does play a huge part, especially in that higher weight class where guys are moving slow. They're moving pretty, they're not being able to, get that output that they want. But I just don't think Cortes-Acosta is on that level. I think Spivak's going to be able to take it, whether it be by, I want to almost make the argument that he's going to finish him. I don't really see this fight going the distance. You don't really see too many heavyweight fights go the distance. They usually gas out. Somebody gets knocked out. So I think really it's going to come down to the gas tank of these guys. But I do have Spivak winning this one. And, I guess we'll see what happens on Saturday. But this is definitely one to keep an eye out on. And moving on, another tough name here. We got Azamat All right, hold on. Let me restart. We got Azamat Murzakanov versus Brenson Ribeiro from Brazil. We got Russian versus Brazilian. Azamat's ranked number 12 against the Brenson Ribeiro, trying to break into that ranking. Luke, what do you got for us? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm all over Murzakanov here. He's like such an interesting fighter. He looks like a big guy, big fat guy kind of when he's in there. But he throws hands, man. I think the Menfield fight was his last win. He looked great in that fight, stood in the pocket, really showcased his ability to compete with, kind of the, not Menfield's, he's not great, but he's, above average in that division. I think the biggest thing for him, Mirzakhanov, is he's old. I think he's 36 going into this fight, which is a little bit concerning. Anytime you get up there really over 35, we most likely see guys start to dwindle, start to get more chinny. But in this fight, I think Ribeiro is the guy who's more chinny, and I think in his recent fights, he's been getting clipped. So I really just think it's a perfect stylistic matchup for Mirzakhanov here. I think he gets it done in the first. I think he's going to knock him out in the first. He looks great. And I really like to see what the UFC does with him next, because he's an older gentleman. He's not going to be around forever. But this is a fight you got to tune into. This is going to be a banger.
Yeah, Luke, I definitely agree with you here. I love Mirzakhanov fighting. Always puts on exciting fights. He don't let the 205 pounds fool you. This dude moves around like a lightweight. And he has the power he has the power to crack you at 205, and it shows. Another thing, you touched on age. For me, it's like once you get up to these heavier weight classes, age really doesn't factor into it too much anymore. You got guys like Glover Teixeira, winning the belt at 41.
DC
Alex
was
Pereira,
old.
obviously Alex Pereira is in a league of his own, but he's 37, 38 when he's defending that belt.
Yeah.
So it definitely plays a factor. I feel like, once you get down to those lower weight classes, but for some reason, it just seems like most of these guys, once they reach 35, 36, and light heavyweight and heavyweight, they age like fine wine, especially if they have the skill caliber to back it up. And I believe Mirzakhanov does have the skill caliber to back it up. Branson Ribeiro, got dealt Zhang Yang, who we've seen now is just an absolute warrior. Yeah. It comes down to, I guess, is Branson Ribeiro chinny? I don't think he's chinny per se, but I just don't think he has the chin to withstand the power of some of these guys in the top 10, top 15 of the lightweight division, like a Mirzakhanov, like an Alex Pereira, like a Khalil Roundtree. And that's what it ultimately comes down to. I believe Mirzakhanov, if he doesn't get him out in one, he's getting him out in two.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is a knockout waiting to happen. You kind of look at these guys and just visually you want to go Ribeiro here just because this dude's just jacked up. He's taller. He's got more reach. But that only goes so far when, if you can't use that reach, if you can't use that height advantage, it's not going to do anything for you. You're just tall for no reason. And I think that's kind of the situation we're running into here. We're seeing a lot of decision fights, a lot of submissions. He doesn't really like to stand and bang like Mirzakhanov does. And I think that's probably, unless he can get him down to the ground, which could be a tricky situation for Mirzakhanov. I don't think there's really too many paths of victory for Ribeiro here. So I'm taking Mirzakhanov, expecting a KO here on this fight. I'm excited to see it. But yeah, not much else to say. You guys really hit it. So I'm taking Mirzakhanov here, and we're moving on. Next up, we got number 12 ranked Bruno Silva versus number 14 ranked Joshua Van. I know we called out a Joshua Van not too long ago. It was an absolute banger. This dude's a killer. I want to hear what you got to say, Ryan. And then Luke, let's go over this fight.
I mean, it seems like we're calling a Joshua Van fight every other podcast, and I pretty much think we are. I mean, this dude's activity is pretty much unmatched in terms of anyone else in the UFC, at least that I've seen. It's absolutely nuts. This guy gets in there once every 2 to 3 months, which I absolutely love, especially given the fact that he's 23. Maybe slow it down a little bit after he gets a win here. I do have him winning this one. I think he's going to need a good amount of time off because I think at this point in his career, this is the best competition, I believe, in the top 15 that he's able to beat. Bruno Silva had a crazy comeback against Cody Durden in his last fight, who's also no slouch. Bruno Silva also does have pretty immense power for someone in the flyweight division. But I think Joshua Van's going to be able to weather the storm. He throws like something ridiculous. It's like 8 significant strikes landed per minute in his fights, and he's carried that with his last 7 fights in the octagon. Most significant strikes landed per minute percentage are like highest by volume in the UFC. He holds that record. It hasn't been here too long. I think it'll just come down to that. It's always this volume game of Joshua Van for me, where he might look like he's losing, and then next thing you know, for the next 2 minutes, he has a guy against the cage, or he's just in the center of the octagon throwing punches, and they always seem to land. Very good strike accuracy, can pour it on you at any time, has crazy cardio, and he's just never out of it. And he has good takedown defense to match that. And I don't think Bruno Silva, if he does get to this ground early, it's only going to be early. And those last rounds, 2 and 3, Joshua Van will be able to pour it on here, get himself a nice, comfortable decision victory, maybe even find a finish, depending if he can find the chin enough.
Yeah, I'm with you, Ryan. I think this is another. I feel like this card has kind of been getting hate online. I think it's a pretty good card in terms of stylistic matchups. I think this is another one. I think you hit on everything with Joshua Van. Every time he steps in the octagon, he seems like we're getting a better version of him. That's what you get when you get a guy in his early 20s, where he's consistently learning and consistently getting better, not only between fights but every minute in the fight. My biggest thing with Joshua Van is he does not finish fights. Since he got knocked out by Charles Johnson, he has 3 straight unanimous decisions. I bet against him last time. I was mistaken. I got that one wrong. And we know Bruno Silva, for a guy at this weight class, he packs a punch. Like you said, he's a competitor. He's been great. Like you said, I think who did he come back against? Cody Durden.
Yeah, Bruno Silva came back last
win,
fight.
and then he lost Emmanuel Cape, who obviously we know is arguably the next guy up for the title fight. So he's been in there with killers just as much as Joshua Van has kind of been getting up to the killer level in the UFC. I think you hit it on the point where it's just the volume of Joshua Van. He never seems to fade. His cardio's, top notch. He's going to put the volume up throughout the fight. Maybe he loses the first. Maybe he gets hit a couple times. But the thing is, even with the volume, he doesn't get finishes, and that's what scares me here. Bruno Silva could put him out at any point in this fight. He's proven that in UFC, especially at this weight class. I am going Joshua Van, but I would not be surprised if we see a second or third late round knockout by Bruno Silva. But I think Joshua Van right now is the hot guy. You got to ride the hot hand. I think he gets it done again by decision.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. Another clean sweep for tonight. I'm going Joshua Van. It's very tough to deny the output that Josh Van gets out. Unreal output. I mean, this dude's gas tank. He's got a gas tank like a motherfucker. It seems like he's never going to stop punching. So it seems like you just wind him up, you get him in that cage, and he just throws. So, kind of pretty impossible to – not impossible. Obviously, Bruno Silva's got a very good puncher's chance. He packs quite a punch, but, especially when, you're kind of almost expecting some fights to go to decision. When you got output like that, can't really bet against it. So I'm going Josh Van, making it a clean sweep for us. And yeah, that wraps it up for prelims.
Yeah, I said, Sam, before we get into the main card, just want to shout out Around the Felt member of his own, Dan, just wrote a pretty in-depth breakdown on Gene Silva. So you can find that at aroundthefelt.com. Should be posted in the next coming days or so. Be sure to go check that out.
Yeah, no, Dan's been ripping. I'm glad you brought it up. It almost slipped my mind. He's been ripping out articles. This dude's absolutely on point. He's doing hours of research on these articles. You read, he looks like it's John Anik writing these things. So definitely worth the read. Definitely, worth the few minutes you got to spare. Go check him out. He's on around the holy shit, dude. Can you just do this, please? I cannot get this out.
Aroundthefelt.com. Article should be posted any day now, probably within the next day or two, I want to say. But he's written numerous articles. Last one, Jose Aldo, broke down his entire career in depth. Great read. Go check him out. Aroundthefelt.com.
Yeah, hell of a host debut for myself. Thank God I don't have a UFC debut patch on me, because I'm pretty sure nobody would take it. But moving on to the main card. Let's go. We got Vicente Luque versus Kevin Holland. In my opinion, I think it's going to be a banger. Start off this main card. Luke, let's see what you got to say about this. I'm pretty excited about this main card.
Yeah, son. I think this is just like we said with Joshua Van. I feel like every card that we talk about Kevin Holland, and it's been consistently across the board kind of we don't know what Kevin Holland we're going to get. And I feel like that's kind of the same aspect here. I thought he looked all right last fight against Gunnar Nelson. Obviously, he got that done UD. I think most of us took him. I think this is a different animal, man. This is Vicente Luque. Like, we can't forget who Vicente Luque is because of a couple losses to Joaquin Buckley. A year or a little over a year ago, almost 2 years ago, we watched Vicente Luque go in there and dominate RDA. Was great in the grappling exchanges. Outstruck him on the feet, looked great. If we get that Vicente Luque here, Kevin Holland is going to quit within the second period of this fight, second round. It's so hard for a guy that, as a UFC fan, kind of started getting into it. Vicente Luque was one of the top names. He's kind of faltered. He had the brain hemorrhage, took some time off. I'm riding with Vicente Luque here. It's so hard. I love Kevin Holland. He's one of my favorite fighters in the UFC. I tune into every one of his fights every time he's on. He's also a great, throw on YouTube, pre-gaming, some Kevin Holland highlights, entertaining guy. It's just too hard to predict what Kevin Holland we're going to get. It seems like he wins one fight, loses one fight constantly. And that's just really where I can't put my money on Kevin Holland in this fight. I think he does have path of victory. I think if they full blow go striking, he's going to hit him with some crazy shit and could get Vicente Luque out of there. But if Vicente Luque sticks to his game plan, mixes in some grappling, doesn't get caught in any Brazilian jiu-jitsu submissions that we know Kevin Holland has in his repertoire, I see Vicente Luque grinding out a UD here. It's just like, I feel like beating a dead horse here, but it comes down to what Kevin Holland we get. And I think Vicente Luque is locked in for this fight. Is he from New Jersey? I remember there being something with him in the New Jersey cards. No, he's not. He's from Brazil. Does he? He trains in Westwood, New Jersey. Born in Westwood, New Jersey. My bad. So there's always that aspect on a New Jersey card with a guy born in New Jersey. That adds a little extra flair. So yeah, I'm on Vicente Luque here.
Okay, hold on, Ryan. Before you get on repertoire, holy shit, dude! Were you reading the fucking dictionary this morning?
Yeah.
All right,
man, word of the day.
Yeah.
I'll leave you to it.
Let's see if I can find something bigger in my breakdown here. Pause. Anyway, yeah, Luke, I think I'm gonna go the opposite here against my better judgment. It's crazy to me. I'm looking at these odds too, and I see Kevin Holland's like a minus 200, 220 favorite. And like you touched on, you never know what Kevin Holland you're going to get when he steps into that octagon. But I think we're going to get a good Kevin Holland this time around. I was very, I don't want to say I was very impressed and unimpressed at the same time. And with Vicente Luque's win against Thembe Gorimbo, because it was almost like Thembe Gorimbo gave Vicente Luque that win on a silver platter, if you know what I mean. Like just sloppy entrance, straight in, chin wide open, chin up. He was just like, here, please, darce me, please. That's what it felt like. That's what it looked like. And obviously, Vicente Luque is no slouch on the ground. Immediately locked that up. One of his signature moves there. Was able to get the win. I was really happy for Vicente Luque, making that comeback. But it's just like, if he's getting a beating laid on him ever since, that brain hemorrhage, for me, it's like, we watched it with Joaquin Buckley, he kind of almost, I don't want to say gave up. I won't ever say a fighter gave up in the octagon, but, it just didn't look great. Body language didn't look great when he's getting damage inflicted upon him now ever since that horrible injury that he sustained. And Kevin Holland in that Gunnar Nelson fight, I know it went to he went to decision, but 10 more seconds in that first round, he probably knocked Gunnar Henderson unconscious, cracked him, and I think that power from middleweight carries over to Kevin Holland in welterweight, and Kevin Holland looks great at welterweight. It's just the tougher competition. He fought like just at the end of his prime Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, striking guy, not much you could ask for there. Kevin Holland probably could have won that fight, but they had that gentleman's agreement not to take it to the ground. Dumb part on Kevin Holland. Once again, it's like you said, you never know what type of Kevin Holland we're going to get. Probably could have won that fight. Does have wicked jiu-jitsu. Does have a very good, competent ground game. I believe he could have submitted Wonderboy Thompson that fight. Then he fought JDM, went to a split decision with JDM. JDM is now the welterweight champion. On paper, that loss ages like fine wine. Michael Venom Page, another very tricky striker to fight. Anyone. Just beat Shara Bullet, moved up a weight class, schooled Shara Bullet on the feet at middleweight, who everyone thought was like the next up and coming Jesus Christ in striking. So for me, it's like, I like the weight class. I like Kevin Holland when he fights at welterweight. I'm going to ride Kevin Holland here, ride with Kevin Holland here to get this win. Does he find a finish? Maybe, but I think he'll land enough damage, maybe get a knockdown or two in there and secure himself a win, maybe even a finish.
Yeah, this was a very tough one to call, especially with the odds. I mean, it's very much in Kevin Holland's favor. That's kind of what got me a little bit standoffish about this fight, but I think I'm going to go with my gut feeling. I do like Vicente Luque here. Um, I think it's going to come down to the sub. I mean, I feel pretty confidently saying that. Obviously, Kevin Holland took, he's been taking a lot of fights this year. This is his third fight this year, getting choked out by Rainier the Ritter to start off the year back in January. I I just think that, you see a guy like Vicente Luque who's very good on the ground, who's got those submissions down. He kind of probably going to be able to see some of the holes that Kevin Holland's got in his game back from that Rainier to Ritter fight, see some opportunities to take that back, take that neck, and then it's just a submission from there. I feel pretty confident, and I'm going to lay money down on Vicente Luque sub here for this fight, especially with the plus money. You get him plus money, and then you get him by a sub. You're going to be getting a pretty good value there. I feel good about it. Next fight, I think, is probably even a better a submission play, but we'll get there in a second. But yeah, I'm going Luque very much in the air though, because those odds really did throw me off. I mean, but I think what it comes down to is the activity that we're seeing from Kevin Holland. I think it might be wearing him down a little bit this year. I mean, third fight, and it's in the middle of the year. Excuse me. It's kind of tough, especially on a fighter that's fighting real legit contenders. You got Brandon Ritter, Roman Deliz, Gunnar Nelson, and all leading up to the Vicente Luque fight. It seems like a fight that, you can not give up, but you can almost, overlook that capability of getting not slumped, but put out in that submission. So I'm taking Vicente Luque here and hoping for the best. Probably going to put some money down on that submission. Up next, we probably got the most infamous fight of the year. We got Mario Bautista versus Patchy Mix. Very exciting debut for Patchy Mix against a crowd-hated and infamous Mario Bautista since that
Jose Aldo.
Yeah, why the hell did I forget his name? Since that Jose Aldo fight. Luke, let's see what you got to say about this one. Are you going with Patchy Mix, or are you taking the most hated Mario Bautista?
This is, if you asked me this on Saturday, I would have said Patchy Mix right off the bat. I actually have been thinking about this one a lot. I don't think it's as clear cut as most MMA fans and most MMA podcasts and guys covering it think it is. If you listen to us before, I'm very much of the ideology that the UFC is the top of the division, or the top of the the cream of the crop. Guys coming in from other promotions, no matter if they're former champs or whatever, they're going to struggle with the guys at the top of the division just because of how good the talent in the UFC is. We saw it a couple weeks ago with Pitbull. Obviously, that's different. He fought Yair Rodriguez, who is much better than Mario Bautista, comparison speaking. My thing is, I think Mario Bautista is, as much as he's hated, and I'm not a huge fan of the way he fights, and obviously the Jose Aldo thing sits in the back of your head, and you want to see the legend get his hand raised in a closely fought decision there. But he is good. Mario Bautista is a good fighter, man. He seems to always be getting a little bit better every fight. He's been impressive in fights, and I think this is very much of how well can he defend Patchy Mix on the takedowns. If you go back and watch. I'll admit it. I wasn't too, in the know about Patchy Mix. I only seen like his highlights on YouTube and on Instagram, but I went back and I watched some of his fights, man. It's the grappling. If he has his way in getting the takedowns and getting this fight to the ground, he is going to storm through Mario Bautista. But if that doesn't happen, I don't know if he gets his hand raised. I don't think he strikes him, outpoints him in any aspect in this fight. I think Mario Bautista definitely is a little more advantageous on the feet comparison. With that said, I'm still going to go Patchy Mix. I listened to a podcast earlier today. I think it's We Want Picks or something like that, and they actually do a breakdown of individual fighters on one of their segments. And they had a former guy who fought, I think, in Strikeforce back in the day, fought Nate Diaz, and he was raving about Patchy Mix. And when you get a guy that has fought in the octagon, has put his life on the line like that, raving about a guy coming from another organization and saying like, this is one of the guys who's going to, compete for a title. It's hard for me to sit here as a fan who's never fought in the octagon and say, oh no, Mario Batista is going to beat him. I think Patchy Mix has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder here. I think we saw what Pitbull coming over from another organization, kind of getting stifled in that fight against Yair. I think Patchy Mix is, coming here to make a statement. He's a little bit younger. He's been off for a little bit. And I think he's going to take this fight by storm. I think he's going to, we're going to be surprised with how well he does. I think it will be competitive. I don't think either of these guys gets one another out of here. I'm going Patchy Mix by decision here.
Oh man, Luke.
Are you going Mario Batista?
I think I am, dude.
Oh,
it's tough, man. I'm looking, like earlier today, I was like,
I was gonna go Patchy Mix when we first started this podcast, and I'm just thinking, I was like, it's like Patchy Mix, 13 wins by sub, a couple more by decision, 2 by knockout, and it's just like, fuck, dude. It's how well. Because I feel like Mario Batista just seen it all before. I mean, he wins against Damon Blackshear, very good grappler. Wins against Ricky Simone, very good wrestler.
Yeah.
Jose Aldo, and needless to say, it's like he kind of, he held him up against the cage. I don't want to call that coasting your way to a decision. It was a split decision, but it was almost like he coasted his way to that win. I'm not going to take any damage. I'm just going to push Jose Aldo up against the cage and pray to God that the judges, see that as favorable towards me, which they did. It was a split decision. It was a close fight. It was a boring fight. It sucked to see Jose Aldo lose that way. But, 3 wins by submission in the UFC for Mario Batista, competent ground game, can defend the takedown. And I the only way I see Patchy Mix being able to win this is if he gets him on the ground and finds a sub or is able to control him. And I just don't think he's going to be able to control a guy like Mario Batista. And I hope I'm wrong, but like you said, Luke, the UFC is the cream of the crop when it comes to talent in mixed martial arts. So until you fight that cream of the crop, you have, like, for me, it's like I need to be proven wrong by you. So Patchy Mix, I hope you prove me wrong, but I think Mario Batista is able to shuck the takedowns, just work the striking a little bit more to his advantage, even if it gets up against the cage for a little bit, just do the more damaging shots and just win rounds, a little bit more clearly. This might come down to a sketchy split decision, but I think it'll go in Mario Batista's favor.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, now that you guys say it, it is super tough. I was super confident coming in, but I do got to ride with my gut. I'm very confident with a Patchy Mix win here. You guys kind of threw me off with your discourse here, but I got to stick with my gut. I do feel really good about a Patchy Mix win here. I do want to point out, I think you guys touched on it a little bit. Mario found his success in the Jose Aldo fight because of his pressure with the grappling, with the wrestling. And that's against a guy that, doesn't really go for the wrestling, and he kind of goes for takedown defenses and tries to, set you up to get knocked out, a veteran like Jose Aldo. I don't think he's going to find that same success with a guy like Patchy Mix, who is so aggressive with the grappling and the wrestling and just super good with the submissions. I think he's almost playing with fire if he does go with the takedown, because Patchy's so dangerous on the ground in the defensive position and the offensive position. I think he's just crazy dangerous on the ground whatsoever. If I was in that cage, which thank God I'm not, against Patchy Mix, I will not be taking him to the ground. That's the last thing that I'm thinking. I'm going to try and take him on the feet. Maybe, try and run around him a little bit, stand in the middle of that octagon, try and kind of just work around him and maybe even point him out with the striking. So I am going to go Patchy Mix. I'm hoping for a sub because I'm also putting money on it. Like I said, with the Luque fight, I might even parlay those, take a sub, for really good odds, I'm guessing. But I like Patchy Mix here. I mean, Mario showed us really good grappling, almost to, kind of hold off that fight against an older Jose Aldo. But I don't think he's going to be able to do that at all, Patchy Mix. I think Patchy's going to put him in, dangerous situation when he does go for those grappling, if he does go for that grapple. And if Patchy's the one that, kind of starts that encounter in the clinch, or whether he tries to take him down, I think he's way more in deep water than, anybody else would be against Mario Batista. So I think Patchy's going to take this one, hopefully by sub, because I'm putting money on it. I'm sprinkling on it. And yeah. Very tough fight to call, though. Very tough because you kind of want to confidently say, "Oh, Mario's going to lose." The UFC almost wants this guy to lose, but you look at the UFC. I mean, you can make way more money with people hate watching Mario Bautista and winning these fights than supporting a fighter. But with all that said, I think Patch is taking this one, and not much else to say on this fight. Moving on, we got some big hitters. We got Kelvin Gastelum versus Joe Pyfer. Two statesmen going at it on this one. I expect fireworks to say the least. I mean, somebody's getting sparked, and I guess I'll leave my opinion till you guys give your picks. But Luke, let's hear what you got to say on this one. You going with Pyfer or Gastelum?
I'm going Pyfer here. I like Joe Pyfer, man. I wasn't a huge fan of him blaming, really calling out the people of Mexico when he got, whatever the squirts from, being in Mexico for that. Yeah. But let's be honest, Joe Pyfer's a fucking killer. He's a killer. And 5 years ago, Kelvin Gastelum, this would have been a great fight. I think we're kind of past that point with Gastelum. I think he's, past that curve. He was up at the top, the Izzy fights, arguably one of the best UFC fights in history. To be honest, he's never really been the same. He still is the same guy, the same tough guy that takes damage, standing there in the 5th round of fights, 3rd round of fights, whatever it is. I just think Joe Pyfer has so many avenues to victory here. I don't think Gastelum is going to take him down and submit him. I think on the feet with the reach advantage, he's got not actually less than I would suspect, only a 3.5-inch reach advantage, but he's 6'2" to Gastelum's 5'9". We saw Izzy with the length kind of give Gastelum some trouble in those fights. And I think Joe Pyfer just has thunder in his hand, man. He's the kind of knockout artist that you question when he knocks a guy out, like, oh my God, they should send that guy right to the hospital, make sure he's breathing. So I think that's the same, tape here. I think also with the comments he made, he's kind of in a position where he's got to back it up now. And you can't really make those comments as we see with Bryce Mitchell and then lose fights. You just become public enemy number one in the UFC world and the MMA world. Not that we're not comparing Joe Pyfer's comments to Bryce Mitchell's, but, in a realm. So I think we see Joe Pyfer, hunting for blood out here. I think he gets in the win column here. And, it's sad to see a guy like Kelvin Gastelum kind of continue to, falter at these big level fights. But I think maybe we're entering a realm where we kind of see him slow down, maybe take some more gatekeeper fights. But yeah, that's where I'm at. Joe Pyfer by knockout.
Yeah, Luke, I completely agree with you here. I was going to say, you touched on Kelvin Gastelum's toughness, and I think it's been the main standing point that's been keeping him in, a lot of these like higher skilled, bigger fights. In terms of his middleweight career, after fighting Adesanya, one of the best fights you could ever watch. It's just been a downhill skid from there. And I think the only thing that's really has been keeping him in this fights is his chin. Yeah. And if there's anyone that's going to break a chin, it's Joe Pyfer. I mean, the dude hits like a fucking semi. You all watched what he did to Marc-Andre Barriault. I'm impressed with Jack Hermansson. He lost to Jack Hermansson. I'm impressed with Jack Hermansson's chin because some of the shots that Joe Pyfer was able to land on Jack Hermansson in rounds 1 and 2 before, Hermansson took over and just implemented the wrestling game were nuts. But you can only ride a chin, and you can only ride your chin for so long in this game. And Kelvin Gastelum, cutting down to welterweight 2 times, missed weight for the last fight against Daniel Rodriguez, now moving back up to middleweight. I just don't see his chin holding up at 33 the way it has when he was 28, 29, 30 years old, when he was fighting Robert Whittaker, Jared Cannonier. Obviously these 2 guys that are very heavy-handed punchers. I think in this case, Joe Pyfer will be the guy to put the lights out on Kelvin Gastelum for the first time. I got him in rounds 1 or 2.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you guys. Not much else to say. I mean, Kelvin just takes so much damage throughout the fight, and he is reaching those, older ages where you can't really take that much of a hit. And, Joe Pyfer hits like a fucking locomotive. So definitely wouldn't be one to stand in front of that overhand right, especially when it's coming from Joe Pyfer. So I'm going, I guess it might be the first time we ever clean sweep by, knockout. But that's definitely what I'm seeing in the future, and definitely what I'm hoping to see on Saturday. props to Kelvin for taking this fight. He's obviously a really good fighter. But I think, the height advantage is going to be huge in Joe's favor. And obviously the power is there, and Kelvin's taken way too many hits to, survive something like Joe Pyfer moving on. So, yeah, I'm going Pyfer by knockout. Not much else to say here. Next up, we got the women's bantamweight title bout between Julianna Peña versus Kayla Harrison. Ryan, I think I know where this one's going for all three of us. I think it's a very, very tough fight, not to call it this way, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on it.
Yeah, give me Julianna Peña.
Wow, really?
Are you serious? Is this
Yeah,
a bit?
dude. No, it's not a bit. First and foremost, I don't think half a pound will make a difference. I'm sure Kayla Harrison will make weight. But dude, I mean, she was kind of getting pieced up a little bit before she was able to take that fight to the ground against Ketlen Vieira. And let's not forget, Julianna Peña beat Amanda fucking Nunes. Like, I think, like, and for me, it's just sort of like Kayla Harrison's like a one-trick pony. You know what she's gonna do? She's gonna get in close, judo throw you, get you to the ground. But I just think over the course of 25 minutes, there's such a devastating weight cut that someone like Kayla Harrison has. If she can't get you out of there early, I think Julianna Peña will be able to turn it up in, 3, 4, and 5. And Julianna Peña, like, I know she's hated, but when she smells blood in the water, especially, you saw it against Amanda Nunes, you've seen it in her other fights, she goes. She has that killer instinct. It really doesn't matter how tired she is. You saw it in the Raquel Pennington fight. She got dropped, gets back up, great recovery. Pretty controversial decision. At the end of the day, the judges gave it to her, got dropped, was able to come back, finish strong, close out those crucial rounds. And I just haven't seen enough from Kayla Harrison. I mean, I get it. I get the hype. But, like, God damn it, it's just it's a one trick pony. That's it. It's going to get you to the ground and pound, sub. But I just don't see her being able to keep Julianna Peña down. And I just don't agree with the odds here. I don't think that, a girl, like a woman that beat Amanda Nunes should be a plus 400 dog, especially while holding the belt and everything that comes with that. You have to remember that Kayla Harrison stepping into Julianna Peña's world here on Saturday. It's not the other way around. She is the belt holder. Fuck, man. I'm just going Julianna Peña here, dude. I think she gets it done. I don't want to have to explain myself more than I already have. I just have a feeling Julianna Peña gets this one done tonight or Saturday night.
Hell of a pick, and I respect it.
Yeah, I respect it too. I don't know if you're there, Rye, but back in the day when me and Big Tong, not Zach Tong, the other Big Tong, the boss, El Presidente of this whole gig, we would live together in college, and we were getting ready for the Peña Nunes fight, and I think Peña was a plus 2,000 odds. And I said, I kind of want to sprinkle on this. I think she has a chance. And I got practically screamed at by my 7 roommates telling me that I was an idiot to forever even considering that. Probably would have only put $10 on it at the time. Would have won 200, but it would have been worth it and a cool story to tell. I did not. I bet Amanda Nunes and lost all my parlays. But yeah, like you said, Julianna Peña, yeah, she's no slouch, man. She's a killer. It's kind of crazy to look at her fight. She's 3-2 in her last 5, and she has won the belt twice. We don't really see that in the UFC, but it's women's MMA. Really, anything can happen with these matchups. Yeah, I agree with everything about the one-trick pony, but when you're the best in the world at that one trick, it doesn't matter. I think we could say that very much the same in the fight coming up after this with Merab being kind of a one-trick pony as well. Yeah, I got Kayla Harrison, man. I think we're going to see an animal come into that cage, and she's going to dominate Julianna Peña. Let's not forget the second Julianna Peña Amanda Nunes fight. Amanda Nunes dog walked her for 5 rounds, struck her one time and took her off her feet. There was levels to it. Obviously, Amanda Nunes was kind of getting complacent in that first fight, and we saw the true Amanda Nunes after that fight. So I don't think in any realm of possibility in my head I could pick against Kayla Harrison here. And I think it's the best for the UFC because I have this inkling in the back of my head that she's going to call out Amanda Nunes, and we could see a super fight for Kayla Harrison versus Amanda Nunes in the near future. I don't know how Amanda feels about that, but there's been, ripplings throughout the UFC world, the MMA world, about her coming back to take only one fight, and that would be Kayla Harrison. So I got Kayla Harrison. I don't think it gets further than the third here. I think she submits her. and then we're talking about a whole new ball game after that.
Yeah, Luke, I'm glad you reminded me about the college days, because I remember I had all my parlays on Amanda Nunez as well, and I couldn't go to the bar for the next 2 weeks because of her. Yeah, crucial times. I missed out on some pretty fun moments because of you, Julianna Peña. So please do me right this time.
Brian, I hope you were laughing at the same thing I was laughing at.
I
Luke,
was.
your video froze. You looked fucking stupid.
Okay.
But your
Yeah,
take was still there. We could hear you.
Okay,
So,
yeah, because my screen went off again. I don't know what's going on with the screen, but I didn't want to like start typing in the middle of my
No,
rant.
you're all good. You're all good. No, you very good points. And with that said, I'm riding with Kayla Harrison here. I think it's just a battle of genetics here. And Kayla Harrison wins that 10 out of 10 times. She's, I think Kayla Harrison could take a lot of the flyweights in the men's division. She's just unreal how strong she is. She's huge for that weight class. She's huge for just any women's division in general. She's a tank. She could take me and, throw me through a wall any day of the week. Pause, not in a sexual way, just, because she's so strong. But I just don't see her losing. I think Julianna Peña had, kind of a tough fight against Pennington, who I before the Julianna Peña fight, I did bet on Pennington. I do remember that. But I didn't think that fight should have been that close, especially for a champion and what I expected out of Peña. I did bet on Peña her last fight, and I was kind of, clutching onto my seat, trying to figure out what that decision was going to be. Very sketchy on her part. Not really too much of a doubt of who's winning Kayla Harrison's fights. I think it's just going to come down to it. She's just freakishly stronger than everybody else that's standing across the octagon from her. And she's just going to walk in there on Saturday and have her way. Although that is just an opinion. I would love to see, an underdog. I always love to see an underdog win. I think it'd be cool if Peña won. I do have like a pretty nice trading card of hers. So if she won, like that would kind of bring the price up a little bit. Would not hate that at all. But yeah, I can't in my right mind bet against Kayla Harrison. I think she's just a specimen and she's going to get Peña out of there. Maybe not by finish, but I do think she takes that belt on Saturday. Speaking of belts, we're moving on to the main event of the night. We got Merab Dvalishvili versus Sean O'Malley, fight number 2. Very exciting. I don't know if Sean O'Malley deserved this fight, but we're here regardless, and we're going to see, in my opinion, a good fight. I know a lot of people complain about the way Merab fights, but I personally enjoy it. I don't mind watching him throw dudes around the cage, for 25 minutes. So, Luke, let's see what you got to say here. Let's hear your take. Is Sean getting this belt back?
Yeah. If you listen from the beginning, really there's only 2 guys in the UFC that no matter really who they're fighting, I'm going to bet on, and that's Max Holloway and Sean O'Malley. That kind of faltered after the last Merab fight with Sean. I thought, everyone was expecting a lot different approach from him in terms of how he approached that fight. Kind of felt like the striking faded rather early. We come to find out that he was not fully healthy. He had hip labrum surgery following that fight, has taken a year off. And I agree with everything you said. I feel like throughout the community, it's definitely frowned upon that this fight's happening. They don't think, first of all, a lot of people don't think Sugar should have got the fight against Aljo. And then definitely not this rematch. I think in terms of people to fight Merab, I think O'Malley poses the biggest threat. I know a lot of people say Sandhagen's, up there in terms of it, but let's be honest, Sugar Sean O'Malley has way more knockout power than Corey Sandhagen. Corey might be more well-rounded, but we saw it with Umar that it doesn't really matter how well-rounded you are. Merab is just going to get his takedowns at will. And it doesn't matter how good Corey Sandhagen is at takedown defense. Merab's going to land them. That's going to happen on Saturday. He's going to land takedowns. He's going to land probably 25 of them. I think, Sugar Sean O'Malley has the only person at the top of this food chain in the bantamweight division that at one punch in any point in this fight can put Merab out. And that's what I'm betting on. I'm betting on that at some point in this fight, Merab is going to throw, or he's going to rush in and he's going to catch a knee, or he's going to catch a head kick or something, and he's going to go out. And, I was, kind of fading on my Sugar Sean, train as of late until really he came out and back into the media, and he he's taking a break from smoking weed, taking a break from the whole sugar mentality, and kind of just being like, hey, I made mistakes. I forced myself to hate Merab. I respect him. He's honestly kind of a funny guy. I was playing into something I'm not. And I think when you hear that from a fighter, it's like, you have the belt, you have the kids. We've seen it with Charles Oliveira. There's something that turns. And I don't know, I just sense it right now with Sugar Sean. There's something that turned in this guy's head. We speak about it a lot, his corner with Tim Welsh, one of the best UFC coaches there is in the game right now, has a lot of up-and-coming guys under him as well. I think they're going to have a game plan that, it's different. And you always have to think about Merab coming in this fight for the second time. How serious is he taking Sugar? He walked through him the first fight. Does he really think he thinks he's going to do that again, but is he training in the same way as when you're first getting that belt wrapped around you? These are all questions, all hypotheticals, not sure, how much truth there is behind them, but man, Sugar seems like a different guy. He seems kind of possessed in this aspect. I don't know if you guys are watching the Unbedded. He's like watching the Nate Diaz Conor fights, the second one where Conor won the second one. There's just a different aura about Sugar Sean right now. He seems annoyed at interviews that he even has to do interviews. He's not posting on social media. He's not doing the stupid skits anymore. He's locked in. So for a guy who's followed Sugar since, the beginning days, since the O'Malley, Snoop Dogg days, I'm riding my guy here. I think he's going to knock Merab out. I'm praying for it. I'm betting on it. And I really hope he walks out of Newark with the belt raised, around his shoulder, around his waist. I'm super excited. This is going to be a banger. I think it's going to be way more competitive than the first one regardless.
Yeah, Luke. I mean, I like everything that you touched upon about Sugar Sean. Between taking it more seriously, cut out the weed, the drinking, everything. He's just been locked in for the last year or so. 9 months, whenever it was the last fought. Just getting ready for this fight. Had surgery. Got better. He's 100% now. All that. And in terms of Merab's mindset, maybe coming in over a little too confident. For me, what it comes down to, you're absolutely right. I am going Merab, but you're absolutely right. Sugar Sean's like one of the only guys in the bantamweight division right now that one shot finds your chin, you're done. I don't see it. I think Merab's a very well-disciplined fighter, and I think he has the biggest edge out of anyone in this bantamweight division, and it comes down to cardio. I mean, like, you look at him when he fought Petr Yan, another one of those guys that just has deadly precision, deadly striking. He was able to neutralize it, put him up against the cage, maybe not the most exciting fight, but attempted 49 takedowns over the course of 29 minutes and he was fine. It looked like he could have gone another 5 rounds after that. I just think when you have cardio like that and you're able to just push a pace like that, it breaks the will of anyone. And that all comes down to genetics, just like a blessing from God. Like Merab got blessed from God with his ability to just not get tired, so to speak, right? Third lung. When he fought Sugar in their first fight, he only attempted 15 takedowns. I forget how many he got, but he was controlling him on the ground for a bit, up against the cage for a bit, was able to get him down. Sugar got back up. I think when it comes to it, if he sees, more danger in O'Malley this fight, he'll treat it like the Petr Yan fight, and he'll just constantly spam. And what we've seen with Merab is he just breaks the will of his opponents. It doesn't matter who they are, like Umar Nurmagomedov. Lost the first 2 rounds, and then you see it. These guys, it's everyone that he fights. It's just like, what the hell? This guy's still coming at me as fresh as he was when the opening bell of round 1 sounded. And you saw it with Umar. As that fight went on, Umar gassed. Everyone, he counted Merab out for the most part. He's a 250-plus dog in that fight. And then as it turns, it goes, you realize, holy shit, this dude's just not slowing down. And he made Umar look like a fool, which is just, something that I think, like, me personally, when I was calling this fight, I was like, I did not see that happening. And I think it's just going to be the same case. It's Merab just going to work his way up to Sean O'Malley, despite the reach disadvantage, the height disadvantage. He'll be able to get his moments in the clinch. He's just going to walk him down. And while Merab is, has an open chin, he is chinny. He hasn't been knocked out. He's still, he might get cracked and wobbled. And I think, but he doesn't go away. He never goes away. He has the heart of a lion. I think he's just going to walk Sugar down. And if need be, he's just going to spam takedown after takedown after takedown. And that gets to you at some point. And whether it's round 3 or 4, I think the fight's just going to shift, even if it is going Suga's way in the beginning, and Merab's just going to coast his way to a decision.
Yeah, Luke, you do make some very good points. I mean, it's tough to bet against a guy that kind of gave up everything that his real image is about just to win this fight. But I'm definitely siding here with Ryan, and I'm going with Merab. I think you said that Sean is probably the closest guy to that belt. In my opinion, I think it's Umar. I think Umar gave the biggest battle against Merab in his career. And I can't remember which fight it was. I think it might have been the Petr Yan fight where I saw Merab win. I had Petr Yan winning that fight, and after he won that fight, just seeing his gas tank, seeing the pressure he's able to put on any other fighters, at that point I was like, I will never bet against Merab ever again. I mean, this guy is just unreal. Like you said, Ryan, I mean, it literally seems like this guy was just blessed with just unreal cardio. It's just impossible to see him tire out. I mean, he's fighting like 3, 4, 5 rounds backstage with Aljo before he even steps on the octagon. Just unreal gas tank. I mean, his name's the Machine for a reason. He just keeps going as long as he's out there. And even going back to that Umar fight, he was just unbelievable with nullifying the takedown attempts, the striking, surviving that. Just everything. I mean, I think Merab is he obviously fights his way. He's going to fight the fight the way that he wants to fight it. But he is super well rounded. I mean, he can hang on the feet. He's not, the greatest striker in the UFC, but he can hang on the feet, and he can most definitely hang in the grappling. And this dude just doesn't get tired. I mean, there's really not much else to say about this guy. He's just unbelievable. And to me, I think the closest guy that gets him is Umar, and that's only because Umar's got that gas tank, he's got the striking, he's got the grappling. So to beat a guy like Merab, in my mind, you really got to beat him at his own game, and you just got to do exactly what Merab does, but better. And finding that kill shot like Sean O'Malley likes to do, I just don't think that's really feasible. Unless you put a guy like Ngannou against Merab, then that kill shot comes a lot easier. But I really don't see a guy the same weight, kind of string being like Sean O'Malley is, putting enough power and putting enough, just putting enough meat on that punch to get Merab out of there. Because really, I think when it comes down to this fight, that's what we're kind of hoping for if we're siding with Sean O'Malley is, we're waiting for that kill shot and waiting for that knockout to happen out of nowhere. I just don't feel too comfortable betting on a guy that, we're kind of just waiting for that puncher's chance on. So, not much to say at all. After that, I think Merab's just absolute specimen. He's crazy on, the grappling exchanges, and I think he's going to have his way again and probably win by decision again on this Saturday.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I pray.
No, I
pray.
mean, super fair. I mean, if there's one guy that you can always bet on having that knockout chance, it's Sean O'Malley. I mean, he's just so precise. Tim Welsh, obviously, so good. He's going to come in with that perfect game plan. But to me, it's just I don't think he's going to be able to get that game plan through with a guy like Merab. But yeah, no, definitely don't count Sean O'Malley out. I think this one's very much a toss-up. Not as much of a toss-up as some fights that we've seen in the past, because I think Merab's he obviously beat him last time. But I think Sean's coming in with a lot better attitude than he did last fight.
Oh, yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm definitely betting on a Sugar Sean knockout.
Yeah.
I have Merab, but I'm taking the prop for sure. I mean,
worth a sprinkle for sure.
How can you not?
Yeah. But I think with that closes us out. Unless you guys got anything else, any other last comments to make about this card. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. Again, Dan's got his never mind.
Look at
We're
that.
tuning out. We'll see you guys later.
Yeah, great job, Son, leading it for the first time too. Props to you. It's not easy running this thing, so.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, props to Zach, dude. I don't know how he does this shit.
Yeah, Zach.
That's what he gets paid for.
Yeah, I guess
yeah,
so.
Right.
Kill it, Zach. Let it go.
Yeah.
Son, this was awesome.
Yeah.
Host.
Deuces, fellas. All right, nice.